Pick Six. The Pick Six is always brought to you by Davidson's Liquors. We'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a second. In the meantime, our Pick Six topic today, the most problematic athletes in Denver history.
Well, you know that I've had a tough couple of days, and so one of mine is a little stupid because I didn't have time and I couldn't see to research. These are the most problematic 6 people. Okay,
Yeah.
Number 6 would be Lyle Alzado. Why? He was in the Pro Bowl here. He was one of the most popular players in history. He opened his own restaurant that's now where John Elway's is. He fought Muhammad Ali, and they drew 30,000 at Old Mile High Stadium. He was the toast of the town, and then he comes back and says he wants to renegotiate his contract. And the Broncos said, we've never renegotiated a contract. We're not going to do it. We're not going to start with you now. And he caused so much problem. He went to Cleveland for a 2nd and 5th round draft pick, and I would say he was a problem. That was a problem. The guy just thought he was too bigger than the team he was on. Number 5, Carmelo Anthony. I don't have to tell you what that was going on. He told them that last year, I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back here. At least he gave him the
2-minute warning.
You can turn it off today.
Also, that marijuana they found in Carmelo's backpack, it was his.
You think?
Just want to tell everybody that.
Yeah. Number 4 is a guard for the Nuggets whose name I forget. I do. I warned you going in. There was a guy that back in the ABA days, early NBA days, was a great, come in as a point guard, and he quit the team at the All-Star break and just totally disrupted the Larry Brown, Doug Bowe team. And so I had to do more
Somebody
research.
look that up.
Well, it's really obscure, but because he didn't have much of a career after that, but he had a half year here that was incredible.
Was he a starter?
Yeah, he was a starting point guard. He walked away from the team, and it really created problems for them. If he'd stayed, I think they had a chance during that period to win a world championship.
Okay.
Number 3, JaVale McGee, and it's not. I said earlier, I think health obviously is figured into it, but when McGee came here, I think most people thought he had great potential.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a goof.
He was as athletic a 7-footer as I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
He's been a total waste of time here.
He was.
So, anyway.
And now he's gone.
Number 2 would be Brandon Marshall. And
You're talking about the wide receiver.
Yeah. Brandon Marshall he was a talented player who, got arrested all the time in domestic abuse. You talk about what's going on now, he'd have been, if they were doing that then, he wouldn't have played for like 2 or 3 years. And plus, at his punting at practices, taking me on, wearing a clown outfit.
Demanding a trade.
Yeah.
I believe he was on the police blotters 17 times while he was in a Broncos uniform. Your last one, or your first one, I should say.
All-timer, Jay Cutler. I mean, how did that work out for you, Jay? Yeah, you're the highest paid quarterback in the league, but how did that work out?
And now he's problematic in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, he and you know what? Tennessee, there's talk about him possibly going back to Tennessee because John Fox said in Indianapolis, we're still evaluating him. And the point was, really? Well, yeah. They're looking at tapes. They're trying to figure out whether they really want to go with him or bring in Josh
They're
McCown.
non-committal is the word that was used.
Adam Gase is going to figure out that, I can do what nobody else can do. I can get the best out of Jay Cutler.
You weren't thinking of the Nuggets guard whose name you forgot. You weren't thinking about Matt Calvin, were you?
No.
Or Fatty Taylor?
It wasn't Fatty Taylor. It wasn't Fat Lever. Think a little bit farther when they're in there.
Okay. All right. My pick 6, brought to you by Davidson's Liquors. Chris Anderson was a real problem when he was with the Nuggets. Hell, he ended up getting suspended by the league for 2 years.
For drugs.
He had a drug problem. He had an alcohol problem. He hung around with some very shady characters and hung around in some very shady places. He was a big problem for the Nuggets.
I liked him. I really liked him as a person.
Maurice Claret, who drank bottles of vodka before going to Broncos practice.
But
and didn't even make it out of training camp.
But mine were at least people who had been here and been prominent.
I got 4 more to go.
Nobody cared about Maurice
Larry
Claret.
Walker. Is that okay for you? Does that work for you, Wood?
No, it doesn't.
Larry Walker was a problem.
Was an MVP.
A lot of people don't understand this, but Jim Leland told me, and one other reporter who was with me, that when he had Barry Bonds and Bobby Bonilla in Pittsburgh, he didn't like those guys. They were asses, but he always knew they'd be in the lineup. He said, this guy, you never knew from day to day. He was in the training room way too much. If there was a really tough left-hander on the mound, sometimes he begged out of the lineup. Jim Leland found him to be very problematic.
MVP on the Hall of Fame ballot every year. Greatest player in
Might have
history.
been a Hall of Famer if he actually stayed out of the training room.
Best player in history to come out of with Ferguson Jenkins as a pitcher, come out of Canada. A really good guy to maybe most people other than you. Drove a really mean snowmobile in the mountains. Found a dead body one time. Played golf with him. I told you he could hit it a ton. Hit a 9-iron, 250
He was still a
yards.
problem for Jim Leland.
Yeah,
Number 3.
Jim Leland was the problem.
Allen Iverson.
Jim Leland was the problem. He slept on a cot.
Is this my pick 6 or yours? Allen Iverson. All right.
He wasn't a problem when he was here.
Oh, yes, he was. I'll tell you how he was a problem. He was a really, really bad influence for a lot of players on that team. Allen liked to party. Allen, I call him AI. He liked to party. He would stay out consistently 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and he brought a number of Nuggets players with him. He was a bad influence and a real problem for that team when he was here. Number 2.
J.R. Smith, but nobody could
He was
say
J.R. Smith was a problem. Clarence K. You can't disagree with me on this.
Well, not his number one guy.
Former Broncos. He's not. He's my number 2. Former Broncos tight end Clarence K. had his own set of problems.
Nice guy, though.
Nice guy. You never knew if he'd show up or not. He'd show up to games 10 minutes before kickoff.
Climbed in windows of lady friends.
Yes, he was. He
got
restraining
arrested
orders,
a lot,
etc., etc. And my number 1, Tim Tebow. He was a problem. He was a problem for a number of people. He was a problem for the Broncos organization. He was a problem for John Elway. That's why John had to get rid of him. He was a problem for me. He was a problem. You know what the real problem was, though? More than anything, his followers were a problem, which made him a problem.
Well, why don't you put that down?
Tebow maniacs were a problem because they put so much pressure.
You don't like people that are religious, people that
It has nothing to
like
do with it.
clean living.
No,
people that like
I don't like people.
Goodness in their life.
I don't like people who thought Tim Tebow could be a good NFL quarterback and were loud about it. Then, all right?
Then you didn't.
They were wrong.
You don't like me then.
No,
We fished
I
today
like you
with
very
not
much. You're one of my
liking me.
favorite people, except for today.